the first time I experienced depersonalization many years ago, that was the first pronounced thing. I just felt like there is something off here. Like my sense of self is not the same as it was like 2 months ago. There's been something off. Um, do we know what is happening with the sense of self? Like what is going on? Is it like a switch that gets turned off, or is it something that's much more than that? Like what is really happening? Is there any understanding about that?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So I think the quick answer for that is we don't know yet. And this is
Mhm.
why basically we need to research it more and understand it more. And what really need to do is to join forces from different perspective and different disciplines to tackle it, because each discipline can come with its own baggage, its own approach. And sometimes you can't see things from just one perspective. You need to move around the phenomena to actually see it from different perspectives. So I think the quick answer would be like, okay, so philosopher approaches from one perspective to answer
Mhm.
that your question. Experimental people will approach it from a different perspective, right? Clinician will approach it from a different perspective because they want to help people to treat them, to help them to cope on a daily basis, right?
Mhm.
Neuroscientists are interested in from their perspective because they want to know what is happening in the brain, right, during this phenomenon. Um, so at least, so you have many perspectives, at least four, disciplines that kind of like try to tackle this phenomena with their methodological tools and then conceptual toolbox and everything. Um, we don't have yet a unifying understanding of what is going on there. But there are many people that, attempt and try to figure out what is going on and to join forces from different disciplines. So I think that's encouraging. There is also more and more awareness in the media. So like articles for the general public, and people start to, you know, um, become aware that this is a condition that is widely spread. But yeah, so I think the honest and quick answer is we don't have an answer for
Yeah.
what is going on. And this is why we need to basically research more on this. But we do know a couple of things, right, that need to be taken, as I said, with precaution, because it's still an ongoing investigation, it's still an ongoing research. So very basically, we do know, very basic thing is that humans are living organisms that are thriving to survive and potentially reproduce. So this means that at a very low level, our brain receives all the information from the external world and from our body, and they try to keep a balance, what they call homeostatic balance, within the required limits, right, for survival. So if it's too hot in this room, for instance, for my body to take it, I need to move out or to open the window or something, right? Why is this important? To set up this background which is connected with body, because we need to understand why the body reacts and the brain reacts in a certain way to a certain threat that comes from the outside, right? So it has been proposed that a depersonalization and this feeling of detachment, self-detachment, is a natural response. So a natural mechanism that our, nature put in place, like so evolution put in place, to keep you safe from the risk of crashing against otherwise unbearable psychological fact, right? So if you risk to crash against a reality that you can't really process it, there is a sort of I'm borrowing this metaphor from Sarah Lowy in London. She created this metaphor of an experiential airbag that the brain creates between you and reality to prevent you crash against it, something which would be unbearable. And because the brain's job is to keep you alive no matter what, so evolution find that trick to say, okay, so I'm going to dissociate, I'm going to detach from this because this is too awful, but it's not happening to you, right? You're safe. You're safe, right? This is happening to someone else, right? So there is this dissociation that it's supposed to be a healthy mechanism to deal with a highly unhealthy situation, right? For the survival of your physical and mental integrity, right? And basically, I think many of us in daily basis, they have already experienced this kind of like phenomena. For instance, think when you're extremely stressed, extremely fatigued, or when you have a jet lagged, right? Or extremely drunk, or probably you took some recreational drugs. You might have, or just suppose you just had a car accident and you survive from it, and you get out from the car and you look at yourself doing the movements, but it's not really you, right? You see yourself from afar, from like a floating, right? So that means that dissociation mechanism already kicks in to keep you far from something which is otherwise extremely nocive for your organism, right? Now, in most of the cases, luckily, that kind of like experiential airbag gets wrapped again, gets wrapped back, and then you get back again to the reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you continue your immersive, daily life. But in some cases, what it seems that is happening in the case of depersonalization, which turns into depersonalization disorder, is that airbag seems to remain stuck, like inflated, right? And you can't really engage anymore directly with yourself and reality, because there is kind of always a lag between the two, right? And you take that perspective all the time. And I think this is a very subtle matter, because our mental life is it's very rich and very nuanced and complicated, and it's difficult to describe it with words. Sometimes we need to use metaphors. And I think one beautiful metaphor is that of transparent window. So many people would say that, for instance, in the phenomenological tradition, would say that typically in daily life, our experiences are transparently accompanied by what we call a sense of self, right? We don't realize it, but we have it all the time because we take it for granted, right? It's there all the time without us realizing that it's there. So I think that the clearest example is that of very clean and transparent window that is in between you and the landscape, let's say, and you have the feeling that basically you are in the landscape, but basically there is something which mediates your access to the landscape, and that's a transparent sense of self. And the idea would be that the more transparent the glass, the more you have that feeling of immersiveness, right? Now, there are cases where you can attend to the glass itself, to the transparent. And typically that's the case what people would do in meditation, right? So I'm attending to what I am experiencing, at the experience itself, right? So I'm attending to that self, that I who is seeing through the window, right? So I can do that, right, in meditation. But I think what is happening in the depersonalization is that there's a crack in the window. For some reasons, something which is related with your bodily processing that is happening in the brain, but also in your entire body, because the body is not completely, obviously, it's not disconnected from your, the brain is not disconnected from your body. So the two form a single unity. So what is happening is that because there are some alteration at the level of, like, let's say, sensory processing, which is related with the self, then there is a crack in that transparent sense of self. And you can see it now that there is a self processing there, and then stands in the way. And that fits very nicely with the self reports of the people that suffer from depersonalization. I would say that they try to retrieve the lost self. They try to figure out what is going on, and they spend a lot of time like focusing on their inner experiences, right? It's precisely because something that was there all the time without us being aware that is there, like the self, now is altered, now is cracked, and attracts attention, right? So if I see a crack in the window, first of all, I can see now that there was a window there where I thought there was nothing. And the second, the crack in the window might impede me to actually see through the window, right? So and now I can see the reality is shattered, right? I can't really, and that stands in the way between me and that feeling of immersiveness into reality, and also in connection with myself. So I feel, and that might get that very strange feeling that of being in the same time here, doing things, but is sometimes there, right? Looking at me from the outside perspective. But as I said, these are just suggestions, just speculation, like theory. We still need a more rigorous approach and more experimental data to actually put that theory